We are dedicated to connecting families with valuable resources on parenting a child with a disability. Our podcasts are designed to provide families with helpful information and support. Please note that the advice and recommendations shared in our podcast are professional experience and the expertise of our presenters. The presenters are independent professionals and not employed by LAPAPO or Focus. We hope you enjoy it.
Hey, it's Anike.
And Jaide.
In this episode, we discuss
Your kid's diagnosis and self-care.
Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
Are you a parent or caregiver that has a child with disability? Welcome to Through Different Lenses.
Through heartfelt conversations and personal stories, each episode is going to offer valuable insights and foster a sense of connection for parents navigating the journeys of raising a child with complex disabilities. Join us as we explore shared experiences and build a community where no one has to face this journey alone.
Together, we're stronger. Hi, and welcome to Through Different Lens podcast. Today we have...
I'm Shannon Mattox. I am the proud mom of a neurodivergent child with multiple disabilities, but he's brilliant, thriving. I also work in business development and autism resources at Laurel Heights Hospital here in Atlanta, Georgia, on Briarcliff. And I also do lobbying work and do a lot of caregiving support.
Hi, I am Kendra, Autism Mom Extraordinaire, and I am the proud mother of twin daughters that are 17, soon to be 18, that I love and I adore. They have a diagnosis of autism. They're brilliant, they're loving, they're kind, and I'm also the visionary of Autism Mom Extraordinaire, LLC.
I love it.
Glad y'all are here.
Glad you're here. Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So today we're going to be talking about diagnosis and self-care. So there's a lot of parents out there that are from different experiences. Some parents have challenges accepting diagnosis. Some parents are still trying to figure out what self-care means. So we'll pass it over to Jaide and go into our first question.
Yeah, first question. Walk us through the moment you received your kiddo's diagnosis. And how'd you feel about it?
Oh, so once in a while, my son is 14 now, but once in a while I flash back to that moment. And, when you are expecting, most of us are happy, right? We have all these dreams and goals for our child, and we pray. If you're a person of prayer and you hope for just a child with all 10 fingers, toes, who just moves through the world with no problems, right? Grows up to be successful. And you don't expect that your child is going to be diagnosed with any disability or be different from a typically functioning child in any way. And my child was first diagnosed in preschool and pre-K in the public school system. We're from Milwaukee originally there at 3.5, and I was sitting at a table with all of the people on the IEP team who diagnosed him, and I literally had a out-of-body experience. I saw myself hovering above my body. It may sound kooky to some, but it happened. And I could not hear the words that anybody was saying. They sounded like Charlie Brown's mother, want, and then it went just silent. And I saw myself, and then I saw a vision of my son as an adult, almost like the March on Washington many years ago, standing in front of a sea of people, speaking to them about something inspirational, moving them. And when I came back to, I started to cry. And I said to the team, I don't know what my son is going to do, but you're going to remember him. He's going to be speaking to thousands of people, if not more. He's going to be very successful. That was the vision, the thought that was put on my heart, my spirit at the time, Then I ran to the bathroom and cried so hard that I cried my contact out on the floor. But that moment there and numerous other things, which maybe we'll discuss later, was that nugget that no matter what we went through or we go through that is challenging, because we do still have challenges, that my son had purpose in his life, and I had to keep pushing for him even when other people didn't see the purpose, or other people didn't think or don't think, because it happens all the time, that he is intelligent or that he is capable. And that is also the thing that made me want to be an advocate, or his best advocate.
I love the fact that you had the vision for your child before the child could have the vision for himself. Like, that is amazing, because you become who you're supported by at a young age, right? And if you don't get that support and that belief from young, it can be hard to believe in yourself. So I love that you had that vision for him before he could even like do that diagnosis.
Thank you for saying that, but I also don't even think the vision was mine. And I don't mean to like push faith in this, and I believe, religious freedom, right, or spiritual freedom, even if you don't call God by a name. But I feel like a power greater than me put that vision inside of me, because that power knows who my son is destined to become. Yeah.
I love it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Kendra, what about you?
Well, that memory is etched in my mind forever. And I was there by myself. I was separated from their father at the time. And I received the diagnosis by myself. And the medical professionals, bless their hearts, sometimes they only tell you all of the challenges. And that's what they did when my girls was diagnosed. But the spirit of the Lord was in me, and it kept telling me, no, not my child. No, not my children. My children will be blessed and see the salvation of the Lord. And you obviously don't know who their mama is or who their mom is, because I will climb mountains, break down walls. I'll do anything for my children to have the opportunity to be who God has called them to be. So I was hurt. I was sad, I was confused, because I didn't know anything about autism back then. But I also knew that God did not give me the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
What?
So let's go to work. It was a devastating moment. And I'm not going to say devastating. Let's say it was a life-altering moment, but also a life-empowering moment as well.
Could I ask a question, or maybe something for us? When my child was diagnosed, I remember prior to that I had seen a scholar, a lecturer, someone who is an expert in the field. The only person I heard speaking about this ever before, just by coincidence, right? Not even coincidence, I think destined. And he was saying whenever a child is diagnosed, you should ask the questions. You should, don't allow them to rush through those kind of things. And I was there with my son's father and my aunt. He said you should always come to IEP meetings with somebody to catch the things that you don't. But I was there with them, but I think we were all shocked. And it was just like, he has this, and sign these these forms so we can get this funding. Nobody was there to come, no expert or no counselor or no one was there to say these are resources. Organizations are the work that we all represent. Like, here's a packet, or here are resources for you, or here's a place where you can go get therapy. Nobody was there, and they rushed through. They just said he has this, but they didn't explain why or what you could do or what this may look like. So I made them go through, and maybe they scheduled the meeting for an hour. It went on for about 4 hours because I made them go through all of this, even though I did not understand. Did you experience that too?
Well, as far as we were in we did a psychologist, so it wasn't an IEP team, and because it was so overwhelming, I did not ask the appropriate questions, and so this is why all of us here, we are so vital to the communities that we serve because now, of course, you would never leave without asking all of the questions, asking for all of the resources. But at that time, and mind you, my girls are soon to be 18, so it's been 18 years ago. Well, 14 because they got diagnosed at 4, so it's been 14 years ago. So I was so overwhelmed because, like I started out, y'all know the Southern thing, bless their hearts, right? Because I believe in physicians, I believe in therapy, I believe in professionals, I do. But I also know that there's work to be done, especially diagnosis day. You do not want to just tell a family all of the challenges that your child will face. Now, do we have to be real about the things that could possibly be in their future? Yes, but we also offset it with, hey, here's focus.
Yes.
And what's the name of your
La Papa.
La Papa? Here's
Laurel Heights.
Laurel Heights, yeah. So, like as you were saying, to the point that you're making, we give the resources also. Your physical therapist, your occupational therapist, your speech therapist, give the information. And I believe while we're talking here, I think that's our mission. We're going to make sure these psychologists and doctor offices and medical facilities also have the resources so that that's why we're here. You don't have to go through what we've gone through.
Right.
That is the whole purpose.
Yep. You don't have to do it alone because there's a lot of us.
Yes.
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 I think it's interesting. I was reading something about, so when people are anxious, it's hard. It's great that you were able to do that, to ask those questions. But when you're in that state of anxiety, you just got a diagnosis. Not every parent's going to think, I know I'm going to keep on asking, keep finding out information. And not every doctor is going to think, okay, well, I'm going to like find all this information and give it to you. So it's like, what is the solution to that? Because the doctors are overwhelmed. The parents are like, what is happening? So you've got these two sides of the coin, and it's like,
It's almost like every organization, big organization, school, it's almost like they need a peer advocate
Yeah.
for like diagnosis.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that that's probably unrealistic for them to hire someone for everything, but I mean,
But it could.
really,
That is it. I always. For myself, I have like a wish list of things that could happen. When I was on the board, DD board, I wanted to say too, we need to stop using acronyms when talking to parents too, because they don't understand. We don't understand. Sometimes I still don't understand 14 years later some of those acronyms and fancy terms that are thrown out. They need to be in plain language. And some parents I found may have some disabilities. They may not even be literate. That was a big thing. I was working with before moving here, the Wisconsin Board for Developmental Disabilities, and surveyed a lot of parents, and a lot of parents were not literate, so they did not understand. So we have to be very careful. We have to ask for translators. Some people are you need a translator. Some people are, from other countries, using that plain language. And I think we need to make it a more common practice to have somebody there to support the families, and also somebody who can help bridge those relationships between the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the speech and language pathologist, the teacher, because they don't know everything either.
I think that that school to hospital connection is really important as well. But there's so much with what I was reading as well is that data sharing. Like the hospitals keep their data, the schools keep their data, and then everyone is pointing to the parents like, you go and do it. So it's like, and the parents are like, well, how do I do it?
From a hospital aspect, with Laurel Heights, again, we work with kids from, we didn't say that, but kids from boys and girls 6 through 17. You think about HIPAA, that privacy thing that's in place where you can't just freely share the information, but there has to be a release sign. And I know as a parent in the schools, I can check on the school system who is able to get access, or sign a release for that. So sometimes there are some privacy things for that reason.
Yeah.
You know what makes me think? What did our parents do 20 years ago?
Mm.
Even 10.
Yeah.
Like how, in a way, how lucky are we that we
Yeah.
have these things
Yeah.
for help?
Yeah.
But at the same sense, like, oh my gosh, how did the people before us
Yeah.
manage? You know, like
And more so because from my experience, we've become so isolated.
Mhm.
And so back then, it was more of community.
Yeah.
So we were able to know who our neighbors were.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there wasn't so much of doing everything by ourselves. And that's why we're here today, to promote community, right? And to make sure that our parents know if you're newly diagnosed, if you're don't understand all of the ins and outs, reach out. Make sure you're talking with someone that has been down that road, that has gone on the journey or still on the journey, because we'll forever be on the journey, right? Someone that knows your heart and sees you and not just the diagnosis. And as we were talking about the medical professionals and teachers and homes and parents, is so important that we build those relationships. It doesn't happen overnight, right? But that's why we are all here today. We all have a different lane to go, to be on. And so our lanes will always come together at the point of being moms and loving our children. And so we're going to be out there like we are now. And we're going to talk to these doctors' offices. And we're going to have webinars and podcasts and go to workshops in Laurel Heights and everywhere in the Instagrams and the social medias to let doctors know that, hey, this is what we need. This is what our parents need. This is what I needed at the time. Because, like I said, I believe in them. I believe in teachers. I believe in doctors. I believe in therapists. I believe in all the things. And I also know that as parents, we're our children's biggest advocates. So I believe in us. I believe in us.
You mentioned what did our parents do before. It made me
Mhm.
think about my grandmother, Pauline McKay. My mom had a sister. Her name was Naomi, and she transitioned at the age of 5, and she was differently abled. And I never met her because she was 5, but you could kind of see on pictures, and I would hear about it. And my grandmother would always say, my grandmother's from rural Mississippi. I would always hear her say she just was sick, or my grandfather would say she just cried all the time. And I remember really wanting to know what was she sick with. And so, you know, while my grandmother was still able to speak about things, I was asking her a bunch of questions. And what was it? My grandmother would shake her head and kind of, you know, move her hands like it was still painful. However many, 70 years later, 60 years later, it was still very painful for her to talk about. She just was sick. She just cried all the time. She didn't really want to go into it. And I think, and still sometimes with parents, especially in certain cultures, in the African American culture, I know some Asian cultures, it can be a thing of shame. There's some cultures where they look at it as a curse, and don't want to talk about it. I would say like the disabled population is one of the last populations that there's still we don't, but as I think as a Black woman, but to not get that respect, to not have those rights fully understood or respected, where it's still okay to make jokes sometimes. And one of the things I've set out to do is to eliminate stigma.
Yes.
Too. Like, my son can be included in community. My son should have respect.
Right.
It's no different than somebody needing glasses. He just needs aids in different ways.
Yeah.
And when I do this, and I do this work for other people, and I do this work for my son, I think about my grandmother. I think about my Aunt Naomi, who was differently able, who probably didn't feel like it was okay to speak out, or didn't have the resources and some of the things that you just talked about available to them, and just had to kind of go with it. I'm doing this work for them too.
Yes.
And for other families who are currently here who need that help. I have people whispering to me all the time, hey, they wanted to tell my mom that I had this, or my child has this. Thank you for what you're doing. And some people are very successful. They're doctors, they're school board members, but they don't want to talk about it. But we need people to talk about it. We need to normalize being different is normal.
Yeah.
I love that. And one of the reasons, like, that I was able to have Katie Beckett is I was able to care for my son at home, because if he was born 20 years ago, he would have been institutionalized. And gosh, if your grandmother had known that there was someone else out there just like her, gosh, it would have made her feel so much more empowered. Just people connecting and talking through it.
And
It's not all easy.
It's not.
No, not. It's one of the hardest things. This is probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life, really. But my grandmother was an advocate. She led the PTA. She did. They wanted to close a high school in the community and take it from the people in the community. She marched with leaders in the community to do those things, but that was the one thing that she was sad about and didn't feel good about.
I think for me, I love the fact that you said differently abled. How many people actually use that term? Because a child, like I was saying earlier, a child is a child regardless. Whether you have this, whether you can't see, you can't, like, you don't know how to do math, you just need certain things to help you be able to get into your lane and focus on what you're here to do, focus on what your strengths are, and pulling out those strengths.
Yes.
I also love the fact that you mentioned community. I think that's going into community. Community is literally everything. Like, when you have those people around you, and going off of that, I want to kind of segment us into like self-care. So community is a big thing. What is your definition of self-care, and how do you navigate that while navigating your child's needs?
Self-care means that I have to take care of myself in order to be the best parent I can to my children. So if I don't take care of myself, I cannot take from them. And of course, you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. So I love my me days. I know every mom may not have that opportunity, but if we can come together to create a community so that moms can have me days, I think that's paramount. I love being by myself sometimes, just to journal, just to have a cup of coffee, just to laugh. I love to laugh. I love comedy. And I love to take a walk or read a magazine or book or podcast or just scroll on the internet to learn more about whatever I'm learning that day. But me days, they are it's just so important. Of course, you sometimes can go get a manicure, a pedicure, a massage, and things of that sort. But really, my number one thing is taking time for myself. That would be affirmations. That would be listening to gospel music that recharges me, that refuels me. And also just what we're doing today. This is me time. And even though I'm giving back, I love this. This fuels me. This energizes me. This makes me say I can run on just a little while. I love it. I love being here.
I love that. I love being here.
That's a good one. Shannon, how about you?
Ditto to being here in this space with like-minded people. You talked about community. I've formed relationships with people of all different backgrounds who have this in common, that we have children who are differently able. So it's helped me to have friends from actually all over the country, and in spaces that I probably wouldn't have. The self-care for me is, I've talked about spiritually, I'm an indigenous spiritual practitioner, and doing that work brings me, helps me to be grounded. Meditation, doing that practice more has really been life-changing. And I do things with my son. There is self-care, but things that I've done with him, and then it became something for me. Yoga. You mentioned girly girl things. I love those things. The manicures, the pedicures, getting my hair done. riding my bike with my little basket and my music in it. I also became a energy healer, a Reiki healer, because I wanted to help my son and help myself. When my mom was in her transition phase, I would do Reiki on her, and my son now asks for Reiki when he has a really bad day. Mommy, can you do Reiki on me? One of his disabilities is a developmental delay with his language, and through that, believe it or not, I can pick up on things that he wants to say, and then he's better able to say those things. So the Reiki, sometimes it's cooking a good meal. So yeah, that's what self-care looks like for me.
I think it's interesting. So I've spoken to a few parents, and not all parents have that time to find that me time. Some parents, just that 5 minutes in a day is a lot for them. Like, when were you able to take, because your children are older now, but at what point were you able to take that?
And it's bringing tears to my eyes because I'm feeling it because it took years. I have to be honest. It took years. I would have to say that it took probably 8 to 10 years to really breathe, to take a deep breath and say, okay, now I can go outside or have an ice cream or go somewhere to eat or just have those me days. It did take some time, but with saying that now, I didn't have us. I didn't have us. I didn't have a community. I did a lot by myself and with the Lord. I'll never just say by myself because God was with me. But now, moms, that's why we're here. You don't have to wait 8 years to take a breath. I would say 8 to 10 years. It took that long. And even in that time frame, not taking care of yourself. That's what we were talking about, self-care. It wears on you. It really does. It wears on your psyche. It wears on your emotional health, your mental health, the stress levels. And I understand that. And that's why I love giving back to parents, because I've been there. This is not a philosophy that I'm talking about. I walked it, and I did it times 2. So it did take 8 to 10 years for me. But for who's listening to this podcast and for people that's watching the podcast, I'm here to tell you, it does not take that long for you because you have community. You have other ways to reach out so that you can have respite. You can ask a trusted family member. Yes, our family members have to be taught and they have to learn and want to learn. But you do not have to be isolated and do everything yourself. And I do not recommend that for no one. But I also do your due diligence about whoever you bring into your family. And let's be honest, the insurance back then, I can remember when I was asking for ABA. At that time, it was like $175 per hour or 70 something astronomical that I did not have because I was a stay-at-home mom then, and I had 2, so I wasn't able to do it. But now with insurance, prayerfully with insurance, that you can actually have some time if you believe in the therapies, because I know every family believes differently. I'm a mom that believed in therapy. So now you can have someone come in that you trust and you've looked over their company, and that even that RBT time where they may be using an hour or 2 hours in the home, go have yourself a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Go take sit in the tub or listen to some music or something. Do something for yourself. But I have to honestly say, back then, and like I said, my girls are soon to be 18. Years ago, I didn't have that outlet of being able to take a deep breath. So the answer to the question, it took about 8 years. It took about 8 years to have me time and self-care. Yeah, it did.
love that you were able to find that time. Because some people think, oh, RBT, no, I can't because I've got to be with a child. Oh, I can't take this time because, and then there's these new parents that are just like, well, my child's only a few months old and like, what do I do because I can't even breathe and now I'm a stay-at-home mom. The other thing I love that you said is that you were a stay-at-home mom. So there's a lot of parents that have to leave their jobs because of their childcare.
I did.
Speak on it.
So again, my son, everything you said, for real, seriously, like, if the child does go to school, like, take a moment or whatever. But I had to leave my job at 3.5. The scholar that I heard talked about, don't just, it's up to the parent or the family, but don't just take one diagnosis. So I had my son diagnosed at several places, universities, Children's Hospital in Wisconsin at that time, private, and there were some conflicts when he was, getting diagnosed in what some of the people were saying versus what school was saying. And I used that to kind of formulate my own treatment plan, my family treatment plan or my family IEP. And I did what I called partial homeschool at the time. I took my son out of school every Monday. He was still going to public school, but I took him out of school every Monday. And I decided, I had him in additional speech and language therapy. I had him in, I took him to see a therapist to talk about his feelings. And the therapist was a Black male, somebody that he could see himself in. I thought that was important. I took him to yoga therapy. I took him, we went out on field trips to learn things that I thought spoke to him. We read books, we did different things. But even still, I had to leave my job. I couldn't work a full-time job like that. So I had a business that I had started that I kind of did on the side. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on this. It was corporate relocation at the time. And then I'm going to, in Wisconsin, it gets cold, it snows, things kind of slow down. People aren't moving as much. So I started substitute teaching part-time, and I could do that whenever I wanted to. And it gave me the flexibility and the freedom. I could do it part-time. I could, whatever the case may be. And also while I was there, I was kind of working on the business too. So, that's what I did, and working with my support system, my family. There was no way that I could have gotten him to the place that he is, and it's not perfect right now. We still have a rocky road sometimes, and we still have work to do to get him to be whoever he's going to be when he's standing in front of that crowd speaking, right? But I could not work, and my heart goes out to families that may not have that luxury no matter what they do. You said you had that times two. They say one child with a disability is the equivalent of caring for 3 children. And it could be more depending on what those disabilities are. So you had 6 and 2 that you were caring for. I have 3 and 1 that I'm caring for. Like I do, and I'm going on. I want to say one more thing. I said I have a wish list of things that should happen, like the family navigators that we were hoping to get when I was in Wisconsin through the governor's budget. That's lobbying. That's why that's important. And we speak up and tell our politicians, tell our civic leaders what we're going through because they don't know, right? So we have to talk about that in order to make things change. But on that wish list, in making those changes, I hope that one day there is more access for things, not only for the person who's actually disabled, but for the caregivers.
Yes.
Caregivers need to be guaranteed health insurance because sometimes they don't get it because they're at home or they can't work. Caregivers need respite care no matter what. They need to be able to pay a family member. Some places they do have that they need to be able to pay, or somebody of their liking that they choose to hire, not just to go to work, but just to get a moment to breathe, right? Because if they're healthier, like you said, the family is healthier, right? Caregivers need, I would even say, money, because it's not the same, again, as caring for one child. There may be medicine, there's special food, special diets, special activities, all kinds of things that make life hard. So there needs to be some kind of access to funding for caregivers. So, hey guys, anybody who wants to speak out to your representatives about that, do that. Tell them your stories. Go down there. They work there for you.
I love what you say because you know something else that we don't talk about. Let's add adaptive in front of the toy or the item that you need and raise the price significantly. Like that's something else that we don't talk about is all the things that our children need. It's adaptive. It's from the internet. I can't just go to Walmart or Target and get what we need. We need specialized things a lot of times, and those aren't covered by insurance. Those aren't covered by anything. And like that's a big struggle I think that nobody really talks about is like all this stuff that you need, and it's so outpriced.
True.
And there's not a lot of access. We can have that. We don't have availability to it.
And or the wait list is long if there is some access, or you're denied when so many families are denied when they obviously have this need. Like cut all the red tape, cut all the hassle because we're stressed out enough, and just allow people to have it. It's not that you're trying to scam the system or you know, there are programs where people are treated like they're trying to scam the system or like they don't know what they're talking about. No, you're your child's best expert. You know what you're talking about and you know what they need. And if there is access, give that to the family, give that to the parent, give that to the child.
Absolutely. It's so true. Even a sensory swing, right? Just to hang up and let them have a cuddle with the sensory swing, and just like you all were saying, if
$3,000.
When
a regular swing is $100.
It's outrageous. So even and then if you have the grants or the nonprofits, you have to do all the paperwork, understand, and but then what if funding runs out? You know, maybe you have enough funding for 5 families, but the other 5 needs the same adaptive equipment. So you're right. We got to lobby and talk to our elected leaders about all of the things that we need outside of just the, I'm putting in quotation mark, the norms of the therapies, but the equipment that goes along with it, and the supplies that goes along with taking care of our children. That's beautiful.
There's a group that I work with sometimes too. It's Care Can't Wait. If you're here in Georgia, Care Can't Wait Georgia. They're in other states too, but it's an organization that's all about caregivers coming together and doing lobby work. So that's an easy way to get involved. Care Can't Wait or Care Can't Wait Georgia.
So a powerful conversation.
Yeah.
So as we kind of come to a close, what are 2 points that you want anyone that is listening to this to walk away with?
2 points. When we're talking about self-care, that is essential. Figure out what works best for you and figure out where you can kind of steal those moments or have those moments with the support system in place. You said 2 points, but do your research all around and try to look at the big picture and keep hope and faith however you do that.
So true. It's so true. Well, I have a framework. It's called PRAY, and the P stands for prayer, and the R stands for research, and the A stands for acceptance, and the Y stands for yield the results. And now everybody's results will be different, right? Everybody, what's a win for you may look differently from any other family, but make sure you're taking the small wins. Make sure you're acknowledging the small wins. And like everyone has said, community, do not go on this journey alone. You do not have to. Do not go on this journey alone. My 2 points is the pray framework. Pray, research, accept, and yield to whatever it is. Yield to the results. Yield to the happiness of your child. Your child is a brilliant person, and no matter what sometimes society, unfortunately, or the stigmas may say, God chose them and chose you as the mom to that parent, and all things are possible to them that believe. And we're here for the community.
We're here. Yes. Y'all are amazing. Thank you.
How do we find you?
I'm Kendra, Autism Mom Extraordinaire on all the socials. I also have I highlight IEPs. I have IEP help. I go into the school systems as well. I just February the 13th, I was in a school system because our educators, I believe in educators, and I said it before, our educators they need support as well, and they need to see it from a parent's point of view, and I have expertise as well, but it's derived from what I know my children needed. So I'm Autism Mom, again, Extraordinaire LLC, and IEP help on all the social medias. And my website is www.autism-mom.co. It'll try to autocorrect with .com, but it's not. They wanted me to pay more, but I wasn't going to pay more for it. It's .co.
.co.
Don't give it to them.
Okay, so I can be found again. I'm at a Laurel Heights Hospital here in Atlanta on Briarcliff Road. My email there is shannon.mattox@uhsinc.com. That's SHANNON.MATTOX@uhs.com. Again, we work with kids from 6 through 17. I specialize in the autism area. If you have a need there too, you can also email us or call Laurel Heights at 404-888-5475. Or if you just want to reach out to me about some other things outside of what we do at the hospital, I can also be reached at SHANNONMATTOX2@gmail.com. Shannon Mattox 2@gmail.com.
MATTOX.
OX.
Oh.
Yeah.
Love it.